All right. Well, welcome to the show, Don Burton, the head coach of the OSA or Ontario Swim Academy, coming to us from virtual Florida Keys. How are you doing today, Don?
I'm good, Brandon. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks. So, how are you managing during this awkward era?
Personally, I do a lot of stuff over the telephone and online on Zoom meetings or different chat meetings, speaking with all my athletes, um, talking to piles of different coaches. The Swim Ontario staff have daily meetings where we're trying to solve stuff that no one ever envisioned to try to tackle and trying to keep in touch with everybody and pass information along, not fake news but real news, and squash the rumors about whatever's going on out there. So um, it's actually been like way busier than I actually thought it could have been, but it's super interesting. And actually getting to interact and talk to people like you is a really fun thing to do. So it's really neat. Um, and now that the weather is changing a little bit, it's much easier to go outside for your, your quick walks or runs or jogs or bikes or whatever you're doing. So it's you don't have to bundle up so much. So I like that.
Good. Well, what are the OSA athletes up to these days with out access to a pool?
Well, so they all have a program that got sent to them to do. So very similar in how we normally work with the group 3 times a week. They would be doing strength and conditioning outside of the pool. So we've continued along with that. Not everybody has exactly the same equipment, obviously, that we would have in a weight room, but we've been able to modify that stuff to quite a degree. And so they have the days that we have would normally have double practices. They have double practices. Days they have singles, they have singles. And they can obviously do that kind of in and around whatever else they're doing with school and family stuff. We meet with them online every other day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on Sundays we do like a stretch meeting. But the other meetings we have meet face to face and we do different topics, whether it's nutrition or it's sports psychology or any kind of technical work where we're doing some video analysis of what it is that they're doing, and with our strength and conditioning people, we're actually then letting them know how they're doing it. So no different than when someone's in the pool, the coach then critiques them on how they're doing it and how they could do it better and more efficiently. And obviously timing and technique have everything to do with sport. So without being in the water, for the most part, that's what we're doing. There are a couple people that have sort of access to bodies of water. There's a person that lives in a condo. They have access to a pool until if and when that building or that pool gets shut down. There are some people that have gone out and bought like random equipment, like the portable, soft-sided, like 10 feet long pools you can put in like your own garage, of which they've learned very quickly that it's very cold water, that they'd have to heat it up and wear wetsuits or whatever. Because obviously nobody's got a pool. So, I mean, there are a lot of people across Ontario that have their own backyard pools. And some people from, whether you're down in Windsor, out in Ottawa, or up north somewhere, they're cranking up the heater and they've opened up their pools already. There are a lot of people who are waiting for their pools to get opened by the local pool company, and everybody's just trying to do whatever they're doing. So to answer your question, as long as we have someone who, wants to do whatever it is that we were talking about, we're gonna keep them busy and we're gonna help them through this. But like the saying goes, how good are you when no one is watching? And that's a pretty critical, important part to this. No one's making you do this. You don't normally have your peers to help you do this when you're having a bad day, you're not feeling motivated. It's really on each individual person, and there's no one making you do it. Like, that's the really cool thing about how this is all going to turn out in the end. where's when we're allowed to get back to play, it'll be interesting to see where everybody is. So
A follow-up question to that, like, I guess routine's such an integral part. So do you think that some of the people that are keeping up a more of a regimented schedule, they might have an advantage over the ones that might just be going by advance?
I think within reason. I think this week the Ontario students were given schoolwork to do, and so people had to figure out how to balance that around with whatever their household dynamics are. But I think swimmers are really good with routine. For the most part, swimmers are excellent at time management because of the strict routine that they have. No different than like someone who's in gymnastics, that a very time demanding sport, you don't have a lot of free time. And I really think that having a schedule is really helpful. We try to make sure that all our calls throughout the week are the same time, so that they know they can plan around that. And I really think that regardless of what sport or what activity you're doing, having having a schedule is helpful. That way everybody else in your household knows what's going on. Because if the weather's, it's springtime, it's getting nicer, but it's not always great and it's not always nice weather. So, everybody has to figure out, well, what space are we going to use to work out, and how are we going to have, if there's multiple people that are working out in that space, you have to come up with a schedule. So it is really important. It's easier to keep track of. And then the athletes can also then sort of interact with their friends in their normal group and say, hey, whatever, at 9 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, it doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to do this. You do it at your home, I'll do it at my home. Let's talk midway through or at the end, and let's do a comparison to see like how hard it was or how fun that was. And I think that's really, really helpful.
Perfect. So everybody knows you as longtime coach at Guelph and University of Guelph there, and most recently with the Ontario Swim Academy. Let's go back a little bit. Is there any stories or memories you can share from the days when you were actually swimming and competing in the water?
Me personally?
Yeah. Going back a little bit, just to ask you a little different question.
All right, so going back into the 1840s, 1850s era. Good question. That's really tough. So in university, after my first year university and second year university, although I was going to school at Carleton in Ottawa, I spent my summers out in Victoria, British Columbia. And so when you're done university, you're done sort of the third or the fourth week of April. So you have a solid 4 weeks off. And because I was out there, because my family had moved out there, I had a job out there, but I knew I needed to stay in shape. And so all by myself, I actually learned to figure out how to train myself. So I was working construction, and anyone that's worked construction knows that it's a pretty hard job. Like, I definitely learned that first summer that I don't want to be doing construction because it's way too hard. And but I did learn that I needed to figure out how to train myself. And so without any help from any of my coaches or even any of my friends, I needed to rely on myself. And so I did stuff like on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays and Sundays, I would bike just on my BMX mountain bike. I'd bike 35 minutes to a gym and then work out at a gym for about an hour and a half. And then I would bike back. And those are on those days. And on the other days, I would run with the backpack to a pool and then swim at a pool and then run back. And I just created that out of my own necessity because, number one, I didn't have a car the first summer. I did that. But it forced me to do a whole lot of extra cardio that I probably wouldn't have done if I had a car, because I would have driven to the gym and then just done weights and driven to the pool. And I actually came back. I had a much better season the second year compared to first year because I was in way better shape, and I was just putting it together on my own. I was like, whatever, 20 years old. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just started figuring it out. And looking back, I actually loved that. And looking back, that actually helped me with my own coaching career on trying to figure out what to do and how not to do it. But I think it's also actually really applicable for right now. Everybody's got to do it on their own. And if you want to do it, you'll find a way regardless of what the obstacles are.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that can be some good kind of subliminal advice to some athletes out there, and hopefully they can take advantage and do something similar. So obviously this time we spend a lot of time with their families and stuff too. So just wondering how your kids are holding up and what they're doing during this time to stay fit and stay into the zone.
So my two kids are they're doing really, really well. My son converted the garage, like he really went after it, and he converted the garage into a workout room. Got nice like mats, the nice heavy mats you would find in a normal weight room. Got a squat rack in there, and then him and I built this 8-foot tall pull-up bar that you can then also use like for TRX, and we have to make an adjustment. We're going to add a dip bar at the end of this. It sort of looks like it either looks like a guillotine or it looks like one of those things from the medieval times that would like throw like fireballs at the oncoming warriors or whatever. So it's actually really solid. It's really good, and they use it all the time. TRX stuff and pull-ups, and they've created little circuits that they do, and my daughter does a lot of. She's also a competitive life-saving athlete. She's always out on the water. So now that the water has turned, she goes out on the water on her paddle board, like where you kneel down and use your hands as paddles, and goes out on her surf ski, which is like the world's tippiest kayak. And so she can do a lot of her training out on a lake. It's not part of normal Swim Ontario, Swim Canada stuff. It's part of the national competitive life-saving team. And their world championships, which is supposed to be this September in Italy, was obviously postponed. But same thing. She's just like all the swimmers. She's training with her brother, who's a swimmer, and they're just doing whatever they can. And so they just finished about a 90-minute session about an hour ago today. And so now Russell and I are going to go move tires around and stuff like that because it's time to put on the summer tires. So some extra dry land of moving some heavy stuff around, rims and tires.
That's awesome. Well, so you just touched on it there with the delay of the World Championship for lifesaving. What's your reaction to having the Olympics postponed and having another year to prepare for that? And I guess is there anything that a message that you can send to the athletes out there to help them strive towards being even better in 2021 for trials?
Right. Well, the postponing it was the right thing to do and the only thing to do. And I think once it was postponed, once Team Canada decided not to take part in the Olympics, even before it was postponed, I think that took a lot of pressure off for people, because when everything was kind of rolling along and then all of a sudden everything was put on pause, that created a lot of stress and anxiety for most athletes and coaches and parents. So now that we know that there's sort of a plan to go to, I think everybody should look at it this way. If you felt like you sort of weren't ready, now you have no excuse. You can find a way to be ready. So first of all, look after yourself, get enough sleep, and eat properly. If you do those two things, right, you're maybe ahead of where you were before. And then you start adding whatever you're doing for working out, if that is what you should be doing, if that's what you want to be doing. And then you need to look after school. Like, you now have the time to reset or reboot or whatever word you would like to use and get yourself ready. Think of it this way. Most people, the week, or say 3 weeks before, whether it's regionals or provincials or trials, That's when people start getting antsy, going, "Oh, I wish I had more time. I don't kind of feel right." Well, you totally have all the time in the world you need, and so this is the perfect time to get yourself ready to go. Do your plan. Do a logbook. This is a great time to do a logbook. Like, okay, I'm going to make a plan to do whatever for 7 days. Whether you did it or not, write down in your logbook what you did. I felt like I moved on this. I'm sore here. This is good. Like, start planning this stuff so that you can look back and go, hey, I did a lot in the month of April. I didn't even realize that. And I'm, moving into May and wherever else this goes to. I think this is the perfect time for people to give themselves the ability to feel really good about where they're at a year from now if they do this right.
Perfect. All right. Well, this was a wonderful interview. Thank you so much for taking the time with us, and we will get this up, and hopefully a lot of swimmers can watch and learn from you, and go from there and get better. And 2021 will be even stronger than it would have been.
Well, thanks. I'm really glad you're doing this for your team and for your group, and I hope that your swimmers and your parents really value you grabbing some insight and some thoughts from people from lots of different angles, and I hope they take advantage of that. So good for you for doing this.
Okay. Thanks, Don.